hi Shilpa. I finally reached Germany, and yeah, I'm in Berlin, where, so to speak, almost my hometown is. How are things going back in India, in Noida, where you are located?
So Rika, the situation overall is continuing to intensify. So we are all, even though we are officially no longer in a lockdown, as in movement outdoors is now allowed, but yeah, schools remain firmly shut. That's how it's been now since April. So yeah, so school has been shut. We had, we had to put in place a remote learning program. So we've had 2 months of that, and now we're all enjoying a 1 month summer break.
So it's holiday time almost here as well in Berlin. But how did you get the last 2 months with the teachers and the students? How did you bridge the time?
Yeah, so yes, this was a situation that took everyone completely by surprise. I mean, extremely unprecedented. But we were able to put in place a remote learning program within about 2 weeks of the lockdown being announced. And we were able to do that for all the children from kindergarten right up to, middle school. But we were very clear that this did not mean moving the entire physical school online. That was not, how this was supposed to work. It couldn't work that way. So we did not replicate the schedule. We had a shorter school schedule. So children had classes 3 days a week, 1 to 4 hours a day, depending on age. We also adapted the curriculum, brought in elements that suited the fact that children were at home. They were learning in a different environment. It was a very different setup. It was very challenging for the youngest children, the kindergarten and the early primary grades. There was no personal connect for them, and they were kind of zoned out. What is going on? Screen exposure was a big concern, in addition to whatever the challenges are for older children as well. But the system settled down soon. We brought in art, music, storytelling in a big way into the online curriculum, even more than what it was in school. We also worked on equipping the parents to working with children. So yeah, it worked fine. It settled down, and we had 2 good months of working with them in online. Was it?
So
How did schools in Berlin or in Germany
yeah,
adapt?
I think it brought out some very, very crucial points here in Germany. First of all, still Germany is not covered with broadband internet all over Germany. It's not available. Also, the school curriculum, no matter what kind of curriculum they have, the material is not digitalized. So it's hard, to follow the curriculum as you would do at school. And then on top of this, it turned out that in many, many households, the technical equipment is not there, meaning there is not a printer, there is not enough broadband, it's not, some households do not have computers. So how was this solved at your parents, at your students' houses? Could you reach out to each and every child?
Yes, within Prakriti, yes, we could. There were some children from households where, there was no equipment at home. So we had teachers working one-on-one with them, reaching out to them separately, separate hours over the phone, and, finding ways of keeping them up to date with whatever was happening in the morning classes on Zoom. So, but yes, largely most households between a laptop and phones, they were able to work this out for the children, even though it was quite challenging because a lot of parents were working from home. So they needed the gadgets for their own work as well.
Mm.
And, you know, how our social structures are set up here, that we do have, you know, help coming in from outside to help us with our households, our household work. So that system collapsed completely as well. So parents were busy with their housework and with their office work and with supporting the children with schoolwork. So yes, they had a very tough time. But I think with some, you know, adjustments in a few places, it worked out. And
So, yeah, what I did see here in Berlin, I've been talking to a couple of schools, is the more open the concept of a school is, the better, so to speak, was the response. How do you think, like Prakriti, having a very different kind of approach, what education or schooling should be all about, how did this help you to bridge this time? And maybe, you know, yeah, tell us a little bit about what Prakriti is. I mean, you in India, you all know what the meaning of the word is, but can you please put it in context?
Okay. So Prakriti, the word literally translates to nature. For us at Prakriti, the school, this means both connecting with the outside nature, the outer world, as well as with our own inner nature, what in Hindi is known as a swabhav, which means my natural nature. Uh, you know, so discovering what am I, you know, from within. Uh, in terms of you know, like you rightly said, the more open ended the curriculum is for a school, the better is its adaptability, the better there's more flexibility, it's easier to adapt to change. And we very clearly saw that working in our case, where we in any case, you know, every year as well, Prakriti does not move ahead with a fixed curriculum from year to year. We adapt it according to the needs of the children, we adapt it according to the needs of that particular time, if there's something specific happening in that situation. And we did the same here as well. So the big thing that helped this to work was parental understanding and parental support, and recognition of the fact that working with the same curriculum, which is you know, maybe what was followed last year, or which was the original expectation for the year, may not make sense in some cases, and so it needs to be changed, it needs to be adapted. So we adapted it to a more home kind of a situation, the fact that children cannot step out. So whatever other goals that we are working towards, how can we work towards them, given the fact that we are in a home environment, completely a home environment.
Can you become a little bit more precise? How did you adapt? So for example, if you take the arts, you were mentioning the arts, you were mentioning music, maybe sports is
yeah. So for example, for the young children, you know, what we set up for them is that our teachers would make a video of say cooking something, you know, say putting together a salad or a drink, and they would post it out to the children the previous day, and we would ask them to try that with their parents at home, or if they had if there is something that they had made at home, to share that with us. So we got our technological platforms up and running. Google Classroom, Zoom were, you know, running for all the children. So the children would do that, then they would document that experience, and then they would share it out, and the discussion in the classroom the next day would incorporate their experiences. So they would experience something, then they would write about it, they would draw about it, they would discuss that, share their experience. And so this helped to make sure that whatever they were learning was not artificial or disconnected from what their real environment was at that time. Similarly, in, you know, for grade 3, for example, we, at this time, we took up a project on summer, and we started exploring some concepts around heat with them. And so we did some experiments with them. We helped them set up some experiments that could easily be done at home, and for them to observe what is the impact of heat on various elements. So seeing if there are 3 different materials, there is wood, there is metal, and there is plastic, do a simple experiment at home and we see what the impact of heat is on these materials. So yeah, that's how we adapted this whole system.
So how is the heat currently in Delhi?
Well, the impact of climate change is quite apparent. It's the month of June, and pretty much all through May and June, we have had rain coming like once every week or so, every week, 10 days, which is highly unusual. So, yes. So,
yeah.
How is it in Berlin?
It was raining yesterday. I mean, summer has started. You do see the sun once in a while. It's warm, but it's kind of humid. So it's kind of unusual that we have like 28 degrees and rain is in the air. So, yeah.
We're at 45 plus rain. So
45 plus rain.
45 plus
so
rain.
Nice humidity.
Yes, heat and humidity at their best.
Yeah. So you mentioned project-based and real life. Why is this important for school? I mean, when you look at a regular school, it's all about scoring. It's all about, getting the best ranks or whatever. And you talk about projects and real life. I mean, it's nice if there are schools out there who, basically prepare the kids for real life. But doesn't this somehow contradict the existing system, which is simply going by scores?
Yes, clearly this doesn't gel very well with the expectation that a school is supposed to report grades, rank students, help parents understand what their child is doing or how the child is doing vis-a-vis others. That is inevitably the element of assessment that comes out in a grading system. For Prakriti, if we are talking about understanding our inner nature, then how does my inner nature, how come it has anything to do with how anybody else is doing or how I am doing vis-a-vis them? There is no connect. So our focus is more on, when we learn by doing, when we experience what is it that exists in the world around me, that is when that learning is really deep. It is in context and it stays with me. Then I don't have to depend upon memory to connect with that learning when I have to apply it in the real world. So when I gave you the example of the experiments that we set up for children, that is what ignited their curiosity, and we gave them some initial hints into some more ways in which they can explore this in their own homes. And the children went way beyond that. So they came back and they gave us so many examples where they see the impact of heat in their lives, where they see the impact of heat is different on different kinds of materials. And we didn't teach them any of that. They just became more observant about the world around them. And this was learning that they extracted for themselves. So for us, that is learner-centered learning. That is child-centered. And that's what we stand for. That's what our parent community, believes in. And
Yeah, I was just talking the other week with a school here in Berlin, the Evangelische Schule, and they also have this very, very much project-based approach. And then they also say, we do not give any marks at the end of the year. And the principal of the school was saying this is sometimes very, very tricky. It's very, very time intense. Instead of marks, you write some kind of reports. And then how do you evaluate, a fifth grader at Prakriti or at Evangelische Schule here in Berlin with a normal system fifth grader who is very clear, in English, I'm there, in Hindi, I'm there, in math, I'm there.
Yeah, I would love to meet this principal. I think we're both sailing in the same boat, and I think she can give all of us some, some much needed support in those times when we are sitting and laboring on on writing our reports, writing our, comprehensive assessments. So yes, it's extremely time consuming. But when we work with children in small teacher-student ratios, it gives the teacher the opportunity to get to know each child very intimately. And ultimately, we feel that the pathways to learning for that child is for us to understand what is the best way of working with this child. And that is the real assessment of how this child learns. And what kind of a learning pathway can be constructed for this child for him to move ahead? What are this child's areas of strengths that we need to build upon? What are the areas of work that we need to address for his learning to become more holistic? And for that, a year-long assessment at multiple points as we are going through our curriculum on how are the children picking up these skills is very crucial. And grades just cannot meet that criteria, because grades are at one point in time. Grades do not give any information about what the learning pathway has been. So in terms of, how does this compare with anyone else in a regular system where the grades do all the talking? I think staying connected with the children's parents on how the learning process is going for the child through the year at multiple points is very important. We have our own assessments built in at various points in time in the curriculum so that we know how things are, where children stand. But that's for our consumption. That's for us to know where we are doing a good job, where we need to change something, where things are not working. Ultimately, that's what assessments were supposed to be about. Assessments were never supposed to be about grading or ranking children. Even if someone is not doing something very well at the grade 5 level, that does not mean that their learning in that area has come to an end. And we should be telling the child that you are, at a low level there, because that could very well just be the end of that child's desire to continue learning in that sphere. So
yeah, we are here in Germany, we are basically facing the same issues, that this kind of learning, what we consider as so informal learning, is not really a practice in our public school. Now, here in Germany, also in Berlin, the public school system is very, very strong, very, very powerful. You being a private school, do you have more freedom to do things differently, or how does this fit in the entire education system in India? Are you considered to be an outsider? Do you have, since you are a private school, very high fees, or how do you balance this out? Or how do you, if you are a private school, at the end of the day, you have to sell. How do you sell the concept? How is it appreciated?
So definitely the community to which this makes sense is a small community. It's not something that, goes with the general public's idea of education. So it's a niche community that we're really talking about here. Yes, it's an expensive way of working, because the teacher-student ratios are very small. The intensity of teachers' training has to be very high. In many cases, the resources that the school would require um, to create this kind of, holistic learning would be way beyond what, a traditional classroom system would require. So, and the school has to fund itself. I mean, there is nothing in the government school system, in the public school system, that recognizes this kind of a need and provides any kind of support. So, yeah, the system has to fund itself. And I think the key thing for us has been that we have never been in a rush to grow our numbers. We have always focused on sustainable growth, on organic growth, and we've grown very slowly. We've grown with very small numbers, but our community has had, complete faith in what the school system is wanting to do, and the kind of learning that we've been wanting to create. So it's actually very it's heartening to hear that there are some pockets in some schools in the public school system in Germany, like the school that you were just mentioning.
Yeah.
Where so how does that work? Do they also have space to experiment within, like, the boundaries of a larger predefined system?
I think it's a discussion which has been going on for a very long time, but now finally it's picking up that the traditional school system, so to speak, this top-down approach, this, one teacher is standing in front of the school, that this is slowly changing, and you see more and more models coming up which are which rely on project-based learning, small groups, teamwork. So computers are more or less part of the sessions. The kids do go out, and deal with social work or find projects where they work on, if they are in higher grades, that they take some responsibility and reach out to communities, because Berlin is it's multicultural, much more multicultural than Delhi or probably Noida. You see all kind of nationalities here. Right. So there is the problem that not for every school, each and everyone can come. So it's a goal to be inclusive with all the kind of communities which we have here, but it's a way to go. But the need has become more and more obvious. And meanwhile, we are, over the last 10 years, and especially here in Berlin, it's obvious that these schools, the students do perform better. At Evangelische Schule, for example, they have had students who passed their exams after 13 years. And for them, it's very easy to get a job, if they know what to expect from life. So there are some proof of concepts, and this certainly helps here.
Yeah, for Prakriti, well, that stage is yet to come, because our senior most students are in middle school right now. But yes, we also introduced in a slightly formal system of examination to them in middle school this year, because we know that in a few years' time, they also need to be ready for that kind of a system, where they will be, required to appear for examinations, maybe go in for competitive examinations later. And we also saw that adapting to this system was not a challenge. And, they were able to see this as another milestone in their learning program. And we were able to start this process of, assessing their learning in this manner. in a format which did not include elements of fear and hesitation, the typical fear that is associated with examinations. So I think in the initial years, preparing children for absolutely free and unhindered learning is very, very critical to expecting them to settle in structures later on.
Yeah.
I think the issue is not with examinations per se. The issue is with expectations on aligning with examinations, and then, the reporting that comes with it for a child. It has a very different meaning for a child, and it has vaster implications that impact the overall learning of the child.
Yeah. So one of the problems you see here in Berlin is to include various kind of communities in school.
Yeah.
And this always leads to some kind of problems. It's a different cultural background, and do you face any kind of issues regarding inclusivity in India, or how are you dealing with this?
India is one country, but many different communities, backgrounds, languages, all rolled into one. Effectively, a city like Delhi or Noida is a cultural melting pot with families from various backgrounds, different states of India, and also there is an expatriate community here as well. So that is one element of inclusivity that a school needs to work with. Another element of inclusivity that a school needs to work with is in including children with different learning needs in a regular school setup, because we believe that just because a child has slightly different learning needs or special needs does not mean that those children should be alienated from the regular school system. So that is a program that Prakriti has had for about 6 years now, where we work on developing individualized pathways for children with special needs. There are many challenges to including them in the classrooms. It's sometimes not possible to include every child into a classroom, but we work on building personalized programs to see what is the best and the greatest extent to which we can include them in the school system. So in terms of inclusivity, I think that is one of the most important elements for us as a school system.
Yeah, maybe we can bridge the Evangelische Schule here in Berlin with Prakriti. So what would be one point of interest you would like to ask them? I'm going to be there next week on Thursday. Maybe we can start a real bridge, not only a Zoom bridge. What would be one major point of interest from you to end this thing with?
If it's just one thing, only one, since
for
you
one, for now.
Yes, for now. Since you mentioned that they have completed that cycle, they've been in existence long enough to have gone through that entire cycle of seeing how is it that their learners have adapted to the real world. So I think that understanding their learning along that cycle is what I would be most interested in knowing, if I had to choose one thing to start with.
So let's see what's coming out of there. Thanks a lot from Berlin to Noida, and I'll hope to see you soon. Stay safe.
Thank you. All the best to everyone there as well.